Well, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Port Commission meeting for November 3rd on this beautiful fall day here in Whatcom County. Our first order of business is roll call. Let the record show that all three Port Commissioners are present. The first item on the agenda is public comment period. And do we have anyone signed up, Diane?
We have no one from the public signed up for public comment today.
Is there anyone that wanted to sign up that didn't? Super. We'll move on to our next item. I'd like to deviate a little bit from our normal schedule here, and I would like to introduce our new Director of Aviation, Sunil Harman, who has started at the Port of Bellingham, I think, on Monday. If you'd like to take the podium and tell us a little about yourself and why you chose our wonderful city, it'd be interesting to hear.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Chief Executive, you impressed me. That's why I'm here.
There we go.
Actually, my background has been in airports and aviation for the last 34 years. So from grad school onwards, I worked at airports, and I started as a operations guy with an airline in Orlando Airport, and was transferred to New York. I worked for the City of New York, managing the leases for LaGuardia and John F. Kennedy for the City of New York. Was hired on as the planning director for Miami International Airport, a major capital improvement program in the early 90s. So I stayed with them and saw them through a $7.5 billion capital program that took the airport from 24 million passengers a year to a capacity of 55 million. I had a segue in San Diego to look for a new site to replace Lindbergh Field for 2.5 years, and then went back to Miami because they were dealing with a major change order and wanted some help. So it was a good opportunity because things weren't happening in San Diego, lots of NIMBYs in Southern California, and so I went back to Miami and spent another 7 years, decided I wanted to be a director of Tallahassee Airport for 2.5 years, helped that airport recover from a declining market, and then went to, most recently, the Okaloosa County, where I managed 3 airports, rebranded their airport as Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport, and rolled out a new marketing strategy for them. And really what makes this area attractive for me is my family lives in Vancouver, in North Vancouver, my parents and brothers and all my extended family. So the proximity and of course a beautiful area, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, good. We look forward to that same passenger increase here.
And I likewise look forward to making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to the Port of Bellingham. Our next item is the consent agenda, and I think there's a change to the minutes. Diane, if you could go over the consent agenda, please.
So I'm passing along to you just a change to an action memo where there was a typo of the October 20 meeting, and I'd like to have it reflected in the minutes that are being presented for your approval today. So in the October 20th, 2015 minutes, the action to approve the amendment number 10 to the Berger ABAM replacement shoreline modeling was correct in the amount of $44,017. However, there was a typo on the total authorized amount, and that should be reflected as $1,224,417.
Do we need to take a vote to change that?
No, I just wanted to explain that I changed that, and it's in the packet for your approval.
Very good.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Thank you, Diane. Gentlemen, any questions?
I have none. No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. Now, this is going to get a little complicated here and sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't make the rules. I just try to live by them. We are now going to recess the public meeting, and we're going to open the public hearing on the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. And Sylvia Goodwin will be doing the presentation.
Sylvia Goodwin, Planning and Development Director, and I have no formal presentation. The hearing on a comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements is to keep the port in compliance with the RCWs that say that all capital projects undertaken by a port have to be substantially in compliance with a port's adopted comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. And we have harbor improvements for Blaine, Sumas, the airport, Squalicum Harbor, the Waterfront District, and Fairhaven, each prepared and adopted separately. I've reviewed the capital projects and I've reviewed the comprehensive schemes. I believe all of our projects are substantially in compliance with those comprehensive schemes. The purpose of the hearing, though, is for any capital project that we are proposing in our 2016 budget. This is the opportunity for people to speak if they have concerns about those projects not being consistent with the comp scheme. After the hearing and after our budget hearing next meeting on November 17th, we'll be asking the Commission to adopt a resolution updating those comprehensive schemes to incorporate these projects.
Okay, is there any public comment on the issue at hand?
Robin Dexter, 3726 Broad Street in Bellingham. Well, Cynthia almost explained why I bothered to come here, but I hope I can do this in a question form. It was a bit troubling when I looked at the agenda and saw this resolution, and it seemed like maybe the horse was in front of the cart here, that it seems like you should go through the plan and build your budget around the harbor plans, rather than it seems like that's the reverse has been done. You've come up with a draft budget, and now you're going to shoehorn the budget into the plans. Do you follow what I'm saying, Sylvia? Am I out of place to? I mean, isn't that the proper way to do this?
I'd be happy to respond to that. I agree. We aren't having a debate. I believe
Is your mic on, Sylvia?
Just wait 1 second.
Oh, little
Diane
delay.
is the master of mics. Okay, I believe Robin is absolutely correct. The purpose is to do a plan and then build capital projects that implement your plans. And I believe we have done that. The reason that we update them each year is because our comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements are pretty specific. And in the back of each of our comp schemes, we have specific capital projects that will implement the comp schemes. Over time, because we have such a large port and so many, some of them are getting a little out of date, and we don't have specific projects. For example, maybe we didn't contemplate that Starfish is hanging on a bulkhead that's in the verge of collapse. And we added that to our comp scheme, knowing that, for example, in Blaine, we're having an industrial area and we're trying to retain fisheries, but we didn't know at the time that we would need to add a particular bulkhead or a particular project. So this is just trying to make sure that we're always in sync. And that's the purpose of it.
So, commissioners, that's the explanation I expected, but I hope you understand, from the standpoint of someone that doesn't understand your operations, this is a backwards process, and I would hope that in the future that you would direct your staff when you're developing a budget to do it to revitalize those plans first, so that your budget is automatically in line and it's being built in support of the updated plans, rather than this way it's backwards. And it from the standpoint of public process, it just doesn't look very good. But I understand Sylvia's explanation. Thank you.
In your thinking, are you assuming there's always enough money in the budget to do the plan?
No, it's just the other way around. You see, I mean, perhaps you don't understand what I'm saying. No, I don't understand. I don't assume that at all. But before you do anything, I mean, before you create a budget item in the service of a plan, the plan needs to be the plan you really mean. In other words, you need to update the plans before you fund them. rather than the reverse. You can't just have a plan that was adopted in 2007, and these are all over the map, right? They're not, none of them have, maybe they're going to say 2015 now because of the resolution, but they were all adopted at different times. And when you build your budget, it seems to me if the plan's out of date, the first thing to do is update the plan, and then you can prioritize your funding. Do you follow my reasoning there?
I do.
Okay. That's all. That's all. I mean, just from a process standpoint, it looked like your budgetary process was somewhat backwards, and I think that needs to be corrected. I think your plans need to be updated, and then you build your budget around them. That's all.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anything from staff or commissioners? Any questions, comments? Is there anyone else that wants to speak at the public hearing at this point? If not, do we need to vote on this, or do we just, okay?
Comment on this. Where was this noticed that we were having this hearing? Because I don't see it on the website anywhere. Just in our regular agenda?
No, it was in the paper. Yeah, I read it.
That this specific hearing about this was in the Bellingham Herald?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, same as we notice all of our public meetings. And
Okay.
It was on the website as well, was it not?
I can't find it on the website. I just see the agenda.
Just in the agenda.
we can put it on the website in the future. I
Okay.
don't think that's that big of
I
an
saw
issue.
it in the Herald.
Yeah.
Commissioners, the statute requires to go in the newspaper.
In the newspaper record. Yeah.
However, there's nothing stopping you from putting it on a website if you'd
Right,
like.
okay.
I just want to tell the commissioners too, this is the scheme and the budget are somewhat of an iterative process. So they're not done in isolation of each other. The scheme is always going to be far more encompassing than the budget because we can't do it if it's not in the scheme. So we tend to put things in there that we might get a funding source for, but if we don't find the funding source, it's not going to appear in the budget.
Yeah, I didn't want to engage in a conversation on that right now, but I'm still confused about what Robin was saying. Maybe I'll figure it out later, but.
And perhaps maybe the best way to deal with this is just to have a separate meeting with Sylvia, myself, and I forgot the gentleman's name. but
Robin Dexter.
Mr. Dexter, I and Sylvia can get together and talk about the concerns.
Super.
Okay, hearing no other comments, I'll close the public hearing on the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements, reconvene the regular commission meeting. And our next item is a presentation from Tamara Sobczak. Budget.
Tamara Sobczak, Director of Finance. Commissioners, today is your opportunity to hear from the public on the 2016 budget. It's been on the website since last Monday. We have identified just a handful of changes that I'll be going through, but first I wanted to just run through the corporate goals that we've identified for 2016. So the first one is ongoing development in the waterfront district. Then we'll complete the Whatcom Waterway cleanup and plan other local cleanups. We're going to focus on airport route replacement and operation efficiency improvements at the airport. We're going to look at maritime business growth. We'll look at increasing waterfront industrial usage. And as always, we'll focus on job creation and economic development. And then we'll be focusing on planning and implementing the repair of select infrastructure projects that are in the 2016 budget. So those are the goals that we've identified. The changes I talked about that are not reflected in the budget that you all have and the budget that's on the website are just these here. We added $100,000 to the capital budget in the waterfront district for safe public access. We added 2 cranes, 1 in each marina, for $70,000. We increased the preventative maintenance line item in the maintenance division by $65,000, and also increased the preventative maintenance in the aviation division by $100,000. Those 2 items were errors that we corrected. As we discussed a couple weeks ago, We've decreased the asset replacement budget by $165,000. And then the last change is that we removed a $300,000 curb grant in the real estate division for the All-American Marine Project. So all of those, the net cash effect of these changes is increased spending of $470,000. So what are the next steps? So today we'll have a public hearing, and then by this Friday, we'll get a final copy to the commission for your review so that you can approve the final budget on Tuesday the 17th, and then we can file the budget with the county by the deadline Monday, December 7th.
Tamara, on Friday, November 6th, will that final copy be available on the web as well, or on the internet for the public?
I can make it available.
So I guess I'm curious, what point does the public get the final copy?
Normally we don't publish it until it's approved by the commission. So with that, I can answer any questions, or if you'd like me to come back up after public comment, I can do that too.
Okay, gentlemen, any questions?
Yeah, no, yes, I have a question. I do have a question, actually more of a comment. So I've been talking to Rob about our economic development quite a bit in the last few months, and with some support hopefully from you two, I think also there's an opportunity for us to do some more economic development work with the city of Bellingham. So what I'd like to see is if we've got the financial resources to increase the economic development budget by another $100,000, 40 that would be a little bit specific, but another 60 for a potential partnership with the city of Bellingham in 2016. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll spend the money and the project has not been well identified yet, but I would like to see if it's possible that we have the money if we could do a partnership with Bellingham in 2016.
Was the 40 intended to go small cities, increase the small cities fund? Is that
if that's the appropriate place, I don't recall what exactly we were talking about with that, but yeah.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah,
So
okay,
sure
then that would
that's
do with the
what-
small cities. So the additional 60 on top of that for the total 100 would be for a potential project with the city of Bellingham.
So the small cities fund would go from its current 80 to be 120, and then we'd have 60 to be spent with the city of Bellingham if those programs pan out.
Yeah. And this wouldn't be money that we definitely will spend. It's just, it's a little easier to make sure that we have that available for Rob in case the project does come up. We don't have to make, any sort of adjustments there.
My suggestion would be this money would be a transfer from what would currently go to BWAS into this economic development fund.
Okay. And does that meet the approval of your?
Yeah, I think it works from a cash flow standpoint if we take that money out of the BWAS and put it into the economic development.
And this doesn't have anything to do with the marketing for the shipping terminal?
No, it does not.
Okay. Okay.
This part of the 80?
No, so it'd be an additional 40 that, thanks for remembering that with me, Rob. Additional 40 would go to the small cities fund, and then 60 on top of that for the potential partnership with the city of Bellingham on a project.
Okay.
Yeah, and the project being probably looking at where we are with economic development here in this particular area. Of course, Bellingham's really wanted to be focused here, but right now it's just a conversation that I've had with Kelly. I know Rob's been talking to folks, and she's interested in doing something. That I think she's put $250,000 into her budget for some work, and I just found that out a couple of days ago.
Is that additional $250,000?
That's
in her budget?
That's her budget, yeah, and I don't exactly know what they're identified to spend that.
Is that an increase, though, from the year before, do you know?
I don't know that. Is that an increase?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's targeting some kind of project. I didn't quite get into that detail with her, but I thought that there was an opportunity for us to partner on something.
Okay. We probably don't take a vote on this at this time. It's just input. Jim, how do you feel about it? Are you in favor of increasing that? I am as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, I agree with that.
Get that in the changes.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's the only additional I've got.
Any other questions of Kim? Thank you very much. Is there any other, let's see, no, we thank you, Tamara. Now, once again, I will recess the public meeting and open the public hearing on the 2016 strategic budget. Is there any comments from the public at this time on the strategic budget?
Thank you, Commissioners. Jim Kyle, Working Waterfront Coalition. I saw the legal notice in the paper a week ago Sunday, I believe, and I must admit to being somewhat confused by the run-up to the two public hearings today. So I'd like to tell you first, I called Sylvia just this afternoon and got an excellent explanation, a detailed explanation from her, and I really appreciate that. And I'd like to let you to know that she did a great job of doing that, bringing me up to date as much as possible. I do have a concern about the timing of the approval of the 2016 strategic budget. The Working Waterfront Coalition would like to be able to see a finished copy, including narrative, with the numbers, and have a chance to spend some quality time with that document before we make comments. And it appears to me that the schedule doesn't allow for that. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would value a chance, we request a chance to spend a week with that completed document in draft form in order to respond. Thank you.
We'll put that, unless the commission objects, we will put that on the web on Friday at the same time we distribute it to the commissioners. That's why the public has an opportunity to read it before the 17th.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will that be a long enough time for you folks to look at it?
Does that give us a week?
Gives you 2 weeks. Well, a week and a half.
That should be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input, Mr. Kyle.
Could I, just a process question on that, would it be prudent to have another public hearing at that point so that we can get input then, or would it satisfy to just have the public input?
We do have a public hearing on the 17th.
That's scheduled anyway?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Is there any more public comment on the public hearing for the budget at this time? Hearing none, gentlemen, do you have any other comments?
No, sir.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing on the strategic budget and reconvene the commission meeting. Our next item.
Fire drill.
Huh?
The Chinese fire drill.
It is. We only need 3 more of these meetings.
Yeah.
The next item are action items, and our first item, Diane, is administration. If you could please read it.
Motion authorizing the executive director to execute amendment number 1, revising exhibit 4.1 of the master development agreement with Harcourt Bellingham LLC to extend the timing for completion and submittal of a building permit for the granary building by 3 months.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowron, Director of Environmental Programs. This agenda item that's before you today for consideration is related to the First Amendment to the Master Development Agreement, or MDA, that the Port entered into with Harcourt Bellingham LLC, as you're aware, back in May earlier this year. And along with that Master Development Agreement, there were a number of provisions and requirements for performance that were built into that agreement. And one of them was a schedule that was exhibit number 4.1 to the Master Development Agreement. That outlined a number of deliverables and deadlines for Harcourt to deliver building projects on a certain schedule. A footnote to that, a very kind of minuscule part of that schedule, had a footnote that indicated that they would be submitting a completed building permit application to the City of Bellingham within 6 months of that execution of that MDA. The Harcourt has made actually a lot of progress on that. They've worked towards the design review board process. They have a public hearing or public meeting, I believe, later this week on the design of the granary building remodel and adaptive reuse. But during this process, there's been a lot of extra work that was unexpected, and that just didn't make it realistic to have them submit a complete building permit application within that 6 months. So we felt that it was prudent to recommend a revision to the MDA and that exhibit footnote to allow them an extra 3 months to prepare the complete building application. We'll review that through with Harcourt and indicated that that would be acceptable, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This typo in the first page of that, it's February 19th, 2016.
Oh,
Just a minor little thing.
okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll make that correction.
Are you talking about the last paragraph of the memo there where it says building permit application by November 19th, 2015?
Yeah.
That should be 15.
February 19th, 2015 is when the new deadline is. That actually should be
Oh,
16.
yes.
Is that
So the new, yeah, so let me, for the record, it will require, an additional 3 months will require that they submit a complete building application by February 19th, 2016.
2016?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Brian, I didn't see that there was any need for an extension on the overall.
Excellent point. No, there's not an extension to the deadline for completion of the building. This is purely a submittal of an application for the building permit. They believe they can complete that building within the time frame that's built into the original schedule.
Super, okay.
Yeah.
We just tried to tie them down as much as we could to keep this going forward, and so my question was the same as Mike's. This is not going to delay the big picture at all.
That's correct.
It's just a temporary 3-month extension.
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All those, hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Brian. Our next item is under facilities. If you could please read that, Diane.
Authorize the executive director to execute Amendment Number 9 to the Professional Services Agreement, or PSA, with Anchor QEA to complete 30% design drawings for the Squalicum Creek Restoration Project in the amount of $98,850, plus a contingency of $9,885, for a total authorized PSA amount of $733,735.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Adam Fulton, Facilities Director. What we're talking about today is the Squalicum Creek project. If I could direct your attention to the screen. Here we are in the outer harbor of Squalicum Harbor and Squalicum Creek coming down through here. A couple years ago, the Commission might remember that we converted this area from what used to be a minesweeper construction during World War II to now a productive estuary, all as part of this effort to rehabilitate Squalicum Creek. Just a little bit of background that for all is the Bellingham Bay demonstration pilot was formed in 1996. And it works to improve the environmental health of Bellingham Bay. And very specifically, the Squalicum Creek estuary has been identified as a very high top priority habitat area. So we're thrilled to be doing this work. This is a very good project the Port's involved with. That was phase 1, was to construct this estuary. And phase 2 is to work in the creek itself. There are several components to the project. So I'll show you here. First of all, the creek itself runs right through here. And so approximately from right here to right there, which is about 100 yards, about the length of a football field, that's a concrete lined channel. So at a low tide or low water, it literally flows a half-inch deep and 20 feet wide. It forms a very severe fish barrier in the Whatcom or Squalicum Creek ecosystem. So the other components of the project then to remove will be to replace this rotor bridge. The bridge is simply too low. It not only it impedes the stormwater flow. Actually, is what happens, but the bridge is so low that that area floods. So the city of Bellingham would like to replace that bridge so that more traffic can get across it. A trail can be added to one side or the other, and that it can be constructed geometrically different, such that traffic doesn't have a broken back horizontal curve, but a smooth curve. Second to the project is redoing BNSF bridge right there. We've spoken about that before. It's just a modification to their bridge. There's also there's a sewer line that goes right through here, and the city has it in their 2018 construction plans to replace that line. It's undersized for the development occurring upstream of it. And then the last component, and that was discovered in the midst of the project, is petroleum impacted soils, approximately where that red circle is. Not very much, maybe about like a boxcar worth or so. But when you look at the historic photos, in fact, there was a tank there at one point, and it obviously had a leak, and now the soils in that area are impacted. So what will be done is those impacted soils will be removed, and an estuary will be created right in this area. Not the best color choice. Right next to the creek, and that's where we have a freshwater source coming down from the hillside, and it mixes with the salt water and makes a fantastic environment there. This is a Department of Ecology funded project. We have the partners, of course, of the BBAT, but also very significant partners with the City of Bellingham. And so we are actually going to hand the project off to them. We're going to get the project to a 60% level. We're going to apply for all permits. Together, we'll go out and find the remaining funds needed, and then they would anticipate doing the construction in 2018 or 19. Do the commissioners have any questions about the project?
So the $733,000 isn't to complete the project. That's just our part of it.
That is correct. It takes us up through a 30% design level on all that stuff, which is the hardest portion of the design. Getting from 30 to 60% is actually less work, but getting from where we sit today to a 30% level is the bulk of the work.
How far up that creek do the salmon go, or do they?
Well, I wish someone was here to answer that. So here's the thing, is that creek goes clear up behind Kmart, and there have been habitat reconstruction projects all the way along that. The city has done so much. So what's kind of interesting about this is that we, of course, have done work out at the mouth of the creek, and then immediately upstream of the Rotor Bridge, clear back to behind Kmart. They have been daylighting and opening up habitat. But everybody points to this bottleneck that's right here on this 100 yards. So it's the very critical and last piece to get removed and to really reestablish that habitat. So
there's not salmon up there because of that critical pinch point?
No, there are, but they struggle and suffer is what we're told from the biologists. So this will.
Definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what it is, it's a low flow condition, Commissioner. At high flow, the fish are fine. They can swim upstream and all that sort of thing. But it doesn't provide at all for low flow passage because of the broad concrete bottom. And it's a sequential thing, quite honestly. What happened was they, in the 1970s, they built that sewer line, and then so that the sewer line didn't get undermined by the creek, they put a concrete slab between the bridges, and now we have what we have today. Maybe not realizing that a fish barrier was created at that point.
Is there going to be? Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Commissioners. Mike Hogan, Public Affairs Administrator. I've also been working with Adam on this project. And just a comment about your question, this Qualicum Creek actually has the largest amount of salmon of any creek within city limits that move up into the system. So a really a large amount of salmon, and this project is really complementary with a project that the city's undergoing right now at I-5. There's currently a blockage at I-5, and so they're going with a big project to remove that fish passage barrier, and there's some high heat conditions in Bug Lake, and so that whole system's being redone right now, and that'll open up another 20 plus miles of spawning habitat. The barrier here, as Adam mentioned, is at most tidal conditions. There's also a blockage here, so this is really complementary to efforts within this ecosystem, which will have tremendous benefit because there is a really large amount of salmon that move through this system.
You say 20 miles of habitat?
Yeah, 22 miles or so.
So it goes up past the the lake behind Kmart?
Yep, yeah.
Goes all the way up to Highway.
Go that far?
All the way up there.
Yep,
And the salmon go up that far, or will, once this is
yep.
taken care of?
What, is there any connection going to be made with a trail or park or anything of that nature?
There is, yeah. That whole the city has plans on their website. It's a city-led project. You can look at it, but that whole Bug Lake and that area is being redone, and it'll be real pedestrian friendly. I think the plan is to have a pedestrian trail. They're working on it right now that extends from that area up to Barclay Village, and then the old rail spur that goes down Squalicum Parkway. They'll redevelop that into an interurban type trail that'll connect down to Squalicum Park.
Okay.
So the bridge is too low now. Are you going to raise the bridge or get rid of the concrete, and will that be enough?
Yeah, actually, it's very difficult to raise the bridge because there are other constraints that make, like for instance, when you go around the corner going out the truck route, there's suddenly an overhead rail that you're not going to move. So actually, the secret is to lower the bottom, and it'll actually be about 5 feet lower than it is today. Yeah,
Which will make the center of the creek deeper.
Correct, and create for that low flow I was talking about.
I only have one question. On this particular waterway, there was a project up on James Street, and I believe that may have been actually a tributary. I don't know if it's this creek or not. And James Street's a pretty important road, but it's not as important as this road to the downtown, especially to the waterfront. They did not replace that bridge very quickly, and I'm a little concerned about this bridge being closed and how long that might take.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. So the strategies right now are, I believe, for a 5-week closure, and the way that's done is it's actually the style of construction we do, and so we're very cognizant of that. We're very cognizant this is the truck's route into town. So what we have with the city is a 5-week closure and then a reroute path on the guide in F Street. So. But it's only 5 weeks. I believe the James Street was closed for months, if I'm not mistaken.
Many months, yeah.
Well, it was supposed to be for 6 months, and I think it was like 10 months.
Yeah.
It was actually closed. And that is the same creek, is it not?
And that 22 miles that Mr. Hogan mentioned is all these tributaries that feed in and connect, and there's quite a few of them. It's a fantastic system
Coho
also.
salmon?
Sorry?
Coho salmon in that, do you know?
I don't know the species, I'm afraid.
That would be pretty typical for coho habitat.
Well, if the 5 weeks turns into 6 months, it's the city that's doing it, not the port, correct?
You are correct.
Okay.
So how do you get from, what's the plan, F Street to Meridian?
Yeah, the semis can come down F Street, take the right onto F Street, and then the right onto Rotor. I don't think they loop through that Broadway thing.
No, they can't turn their mic. They've got bumped out corners on F Street.
It might be that they
DuPont and Gerard
they
long, and it's hard for me sometimes to turn those corners.
Yeah.
So it would have to be Broadway or, well, anyway, they'll figure it out. But anyway, just concern. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we thought about that, and we definitely cannot live with a long closure, and so the construction is actually reflective of how it needs to be constructed per that concern. So
That's it.
This is 5 weeks of trucks going by your front yard, is that the
I don't live in
concern?
that. I moved.
Oh,
Yeah. Although I know somebody on F Street that is going to love this.
well, let's hope it really is 5 weeks. Okay, anything else?
No,
Any
sir.
other questions, gentlemen? Thank you very much, Adam.
You're welcome.
Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. Our next item is a maritime item. Diane, if you could please read the action item.
A motion to authorize the executive director to execute an exclusive negotiating agreement with Decorum Limited and Biofiber Manufacturers, Inc., or BFM, for approximately 20 acres on the Bellingham Shipping Terminal and Log Pond area to conduct due diligence for exporting logs and biofuel materials from these facilities.
Thank you, Diane. Commissioners, it's my pleasure to present a piece of marine terminal business to you for BST and the Log Pond. Port staff has been talking with several forest products exporters for a number of years about using BST. One of their ongoing concerns has been the draft at the terminal. As you know, we're very appreciative that the environmental and facilities directors have been able to kind of move that project along, and we're dredging as we speak out on the Whatcom Waterway. That has attracted some additional attention to the terminal. We have with us today Bruce Carver from Biofuel and Steve Grandorf from Decorum. They're in the audience and they can answer any questions that I'm not able to. As our discussions with them have proceeded, they're very interested in the terminal. They think that there's a possibility of a market here for them. Before they take their due diligence to the next level and really invest a lot of time, they would like some assurance from us that, at least from a forest products perspective, that we'll stay with them and work this through. The requested negotiating period is through the end of April, which kind of dovetails with the completion of the Whatcom Waterway Phase 1 project. We don't have any other uses that this would kick out during that period. So we would ask for your consideration today for this agreement. We have a lot of work to do with these customers to find a way for them to work out of the shipping terminal Long Pond, but we're very excited about the opportunity and wanted to bring this to you today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, any questions?
No, never know.
Any questions, Commissioner? While you're looking there, I might ask a question. How old are the logs? How big are these logs that we're planning to ship out of the terminal, and how far away are they coming from? Maybe gentlemen, if they're here, could answer some of this. Or
so, Steve, my understanding was that like 30 to 40-year-old timber. Is that approximately?
35-year-old plus.
35-year-old plus.
Yep.
And without giving away any of your secret clients, are they from Whatcom County, Skagit County? How far away are you?
Yeah, Whatcom, Skagit, and Snohomish. Also potential from Canada.
Okay. And we all understand from what I've read here, this is an exclusive for you folks, that we can't do any other business like this, but we're free if it's an unrelated business to sign a contract during this time. And do you understand that as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And have no problem with that?
No, that's an important part of the arrangement if we're able to come to an agreement.
Okay.
When's the last time there were logs in that log pond?
Well, these won't be in the log pond. But
well, but I mean, near there.
It was pre-2008 when I joined the port, but I would say it's
well,
probably...
You've been here 12 years, Commissioner.
Yes,
the log pond wasn't being used when you first started.
No, it wasn't.
It was before that.
I think the
2000-ish.
The last time the Port of Bellingham exported logs off of BST, I think, was in the late 90s. Because I was in Anacortes at the time, and then the business went from here to there, 97, 98.
Geez, for people to see logs there would be, I mean, wow. In a log pond, maybe.
Are there enough tree farms around here to ship a lot of, I guess you call them tree farms. I'm in the logging business. If it's the left side of life, we call it a tree farm. If it's a right side, we call them loggers. Are there enough of those folks around to supply the timber for a long period of time?
We believe there are, but that's part of the reason for this due diligence process.
Okay.
Process is to determine just how much there is.
You just want to make sure if you go to all the trouble to secure all these folks that you have a place to ship it from. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No. Good luck on the process. Hope it works.
Yeah, that would be.
You got your work cut out for you. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Work cut out for you, cut out.
Okay, on the action item, hearing no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. Thank you, Dan. Our next item, action item, is a real estate item. Diane, if you could please read the motion.
A motion by the Commission to approve the following documents. Item 1, a second amendment to the amended and restated capital ground lease between the Port of Bellingham and Cohanum Bellwether LLC, Building A. Item 2, fifth amendment to the amended and restated capital ground lease between the Port of Bellingham and Cohanum Bellwether D LLC, Parcel D1. And item 3, Sixth Amendment to the Development Design Agreement between the Port of Bellingham and Cohanum Bellwether D LLC.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Judy Harvey, Real Estate Representative. This second amendment modifies the Building D lease to allow residential space on the third and or fourth floor, as the Cohanums are exploring the conversion of these floors to residential space. And such conversion would be subject to all applicable requirements, zoning, and permits necessary as outlined in your memo. The Fifth Amendment modifies the lease for Parcel D by extending the construction commencement of Building D to the earlier of the date when the Cohanums obtained permits from the City of Bellingham, but no later than 2 calendar years after closing, and it extends for the same period of time the other applicable dates related to the construction of Building D. The terms of the $100,000 extension fee, which has been paid, remain the same in the sense that the $30,000 is non-refundable, and provided that each extension date is met, $70,000 of the $100,000 will be applied to the base rent. Further, if any extension date is not met, $70,000 is retained in addition to the $30,000 as the extension fee, and in such case, the Cohanums are required to pay the entire base rent. The Sixth Amendment to the Development Design Agreement recognizes the extended dates for Building D as well. All of these documents do require that closing occurs for Building A on or before November 13th. If that should not occur, all of these documents are null and void with no further action. We understand the closing for Building A is scheduled for tomorrow. We are very excited about that and look forward to this new partnership with the Cohanums. Staff is recommending approval of these documents. And does the Commission have any questions or comments?
Commissioner McCollum?
Yes, on the Building D site, it's currently just gravel, and the former owner was allowing us to use that for parking, overflow parking, that sort of thing. In the current agreement, do we have a similar, or have we had a similar conversation with the Cohanums about using that until construction commences?
Yes, we have, and we will continue to do so. There shouldn't be any issues with utilizing that for the same type of activity for parking.
Perfect. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone let the record show that passes 3-0? Okay, that covers everything. We're now down on the action items. We're now down to new business. Gentlemen, do you have any new business?
I do, but I'll wait for him.
Any new business?
Just would like to get a little bit of an explanation, perhaps, on the 4 options for the Blaine walkway out, if somebody would have that in the top of their head. Could just suggest what those might be so people are familiar with what the possibilities are.
Put that as a discussion item for November 17th and have the slides to show you. Sylvia Goodwin, Planning and Development. We could bring pictures and put them up on the next meeting.
Yeah, that is a possibility. Yeah, okay. Good. That's just really nice to see some work going on there and the possibility of that happening. I know it's a lot of money and the city is not exactly loaded, but it's real positive.
I see they have the dedication of the new park down there.
They did.
Good.
I wasn't dancing, but I was, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even a little bit of an understatement to say it's a bummer that the MACA fund has been affected like it has, because I think it really limits us, not just here in Bellingham, but at least for the next few years on what we can do in Blaine. And that's a huge shame. And I wish we had more money. That would be nice. That would be real nice. But if I could ask for or make a request about the Port's website. Somebody asked me this question. They said, where can I find the budget? And it's 3 clicks in, if you know, to start at About Us, and then you go to financial info, and at the bottom of that page for the strategic budget. So the request would be not so much just for this specific item, but things that are coming up that we can anticipate would have a public hearing or the public may be interested in. I know it's, you sometimes have to guess, but I think in this case, this one's pretty easy. If we could put some sort of a notice up front, maybe it's on a calendar with a link or something like that, so that folks can find it a little bit more easily.
Just looking for a quicker link to the document. So we say, we're in budget season right now. We just put a budget link up there.
Yes, and it also brings up another point, because like I said earlier, you and I have been talking quite a bit about economic development, and our homepage shows 3 images of the marinas, which is really, really cool. But I wonder if there's a way we can sort of tease out some easier access to those issues around economic development, where I know there's a new website that's being put together, some information, so maybe there's a way that can be highlighted in some way so people can find that a little bit easier through the Port's homepage also. So that's about it for that. And then this morning, I put out a heads up to some friends and their networks, and we took a tour of the Lignan building. And I was really excited about doing that, because I'm hoping that we can find a use for the building besides a warehouse. So the point of the tour was to have folks, for example, there were 4 people from the tourism board, the director of Recreation Northwest, the director of the Downtown Bellingham Partnership, and then I think there may be a small news article about it, kind of describe what that was about. But one of the things that's I've been thinking about with that building for some years, because I think when Scott was still here, Jim, we talked about putting some money back into that building and sort of sprucing it up and turning it into a warehouse. But it's not really, people aren't jumping at the gate to sort of, or hammering at the gate to try to get in so they can use it as a warehouse. So something that I've been thinking about for a few years is, well, what can we do with the building besides a warehouse, assuming it's not torn down because the railroad moves. So a few months ago, I was describing it to Rob again, and he said, oh, that sounds like a trade show floor. So I invited some folks down that would be knowledgeable about that sort of activity to show them the building and help answer the question, would that be a reasonable location and a reasonable building to look at as an exposition hall or a trade show floor? And the only place you really can see that now in Whatcom County is in Linden, and at the fairgrounds, in the Northwest Washington Fairgrounds. So I'm hoping to get some feedback from these folks to answer that particular question, whether or not it would be reasonable to pursue looking at that building as an exposition hall, not a convention center, exposition, which is a different use. And it's also much cheaper to get into that business. And if it looks like that some smart local people think that we could populate that enough during the year to pay for it, then I'll come back and ask you all if you want to pursue doing sort of a market study.
Remind me the square feet of that building.
It's over 40,000 useful.
And what's the size of the convention center or exhibition center out at the Silver Reef now? How big is that?
I don't think it's that big, yeah.
So it's almost twice, that would be almost twice the size?
Yeah, the difference being is that I reference this building as an exposition hall to the ones at the fairgrounds, because this is a place where you can drive things in and out, and none of the other spaces in the county can you do that at any reasonable level. So it opens up the possibilities for at least Bellingham to market the downtown with expositions where where there's no other place to do it like that except for the Linden Fairgrounds. One question that was raised, well, what about the Home and Garden Show? And of course, it's important to talk to anybody to make sure we're not going to take business away. But just as a person who's lived here for as long as I have, I couldn't see the Home and Garden Show ever moving out of Linden anyway. So I don't think there's going to be a big problem with that. But
Okay.
anyway, so just want to give you guys a heads up what I'm up to.
Appreciate that.
That's it. Yep.
Anything else under new business?
No.
Nope. Well, hearing none other, we are adjourned.